all, thank you all so very much for joining us today as we cut the ribbon on a remarkable new transit facility that will serve this community and the greater area probably for the next 50 years, if not longer than that. It's built with a planning dimension that also takes into account multimodal in terms of its focus, not just public transit in terms of the buses themselves, which we obviously always associate Point Transit and City Bus with, as well as Point Plus, but we're really looking at the future, and that's why we positioned it here in this area, not unlike Roland and Mary thought about so many years ago, which we'll get a chance to talk about a little bit more specifically in a bit. But today we're also here for a very specific reason. We have acreage to do a variety of things here. Park and ride opportunities with the Department of Transportation off of the interstate. Most importantly, one of the very important reasons that this facility is here is the proximity to that rail. And at some point, I think we all know that in 30, 50 years, somewhere in that vicinity, passenger rail will become very, very important to the United States as a whole. And as we look to keep this facility here, passenger rail at some point is obviously a long-term goal and aspiration of the city, as well as creating a real destination for all of central Wisconsin to rely on. One of the other reasons is the proximity to the interstate and the future hope also of an intercity bus program, which we've been working on with other central Wisconsin municipalities for many years. That is stalled, and it probably will get rekindled here very quickly. One of the other reasons it's here is we have 800 acres of developable land, and our first project to our east is starting now, and it's designed in a way to produce thousands of jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars of tax base for the city and the county in the future as we move forward. Those employees, we want to eventually get less reliant on the vehicle. We want them more reliant on bicycle opportunities, and we want them more reliant on public transit opportunities that we want to continue to build here. This is the first step and really the cornerstone of building really what is one of the best small municipality transit operations in the state, but eventually we want it to become one of the largest and best for small communities in the United States, and we feel this is a great way to start. Buildings like this don't get built without partnerships. We have Nicole Lisney, who's here as the chairperson of our Transit Commission. Many of the others transit commissioners are here with us as well. But the federal government, most importantly, and we're thrilled to have Mark from Congressman Kine's office here with us because it really signifies the importance of the federal government's continued commitment to paratransit and public transportation for the entire country. This was funded in an 80-20 match between the federal government. The city of Stevens Point has $1 million in it. The federal government has a little over $4 million in this facility, and it really represents that perfect bridging of how you get things done that are very, very expensive for communities of our size to do independently. So we're thrilled to have everyone here. We have representatives of Angus Young, the architectural firm that helped us build it, Ellistone Construction, Local Construction, which we're thrilled, and many others. Susan, of course, our transit manager. Tom, one of our other managers here. Director Lemke is here as well. Alderman O'Mara, the comptroller, is here with us as well, so we appreciate that. And without further ado, most importantly, it wouldn't be without those that are here that use this system and rely on it on a day-to-day basis. And we thank you all so very much for that. So, with that, we'll cut the ribbon, open this great facility, and then if you could, right after we're done, if you could follow us into the conference room, which we'll be naming here this evening. We have one other presentation that we'd like to make here this evening as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Okay, well, everyone try and get in certainly as close as we can. Katrina, do you have any remarks that you'd like to share with us?
Sure.
Please.
Sure. Well, I'm very pleased to be here as the new representative of the 71st Assembly District. I'm so proud of this area for leading the way in the state. You probably noticed Mayor Halverson did not mention any state funds were dedicated to it. And while I'm disappointed that transit funds have been cut in the budget this year and in the past, I can say from this area the representatives will continue to advocate for strong investment in Wisconsin's future. Public transit means so much to so many people who may otherwise have no options. Public transit means being able to see your grandkids, having access to somewhere outside of campus if you're a student, access to groceries, crucial medication, access to your job. So not only does strong public transit ensure affordable access to a lot of our wonderful community. It also makes sure people can get to work, people can provide for their families, and people have a strong economic future. So I can say from my perspective on the state level, I would love to have the state involved in future projects, but I really applaud the City of Stevens Point for leading the way and really making a difference for our community. This is exactly the kind of partnership with the federal government and the city that I would like to see more of, and I hope in the future the state can be more supportive of it. But in the meantime, I want to applaud you guys for the incredible work you've done to ensure that many people in this community have access to transit. Throughout the budget hearings this year, I heard from a lot of you actually in the crowd, and we heard from Carrie, Bob, Marlene. I had a great meeting with Susan touring this beautiful facility, and you guys have done such an incredible job advocating for strong public transit and affordable access to transportation. And that's the kind of community I want to live in. I'm so proud to be here because of what we've done together, and I think in the future we can only go up and we can only increase access to affordable transportation. So thank you very much.
And let's also hope at some point in the very near future that it is also home of another partnership that we will build with county transit as well.
Yes. That's what I'm interested in.
And it's certainly not the county executive's fault by any means. So we're thrilled, welcome, and we hope that we can move forward again in the future. So congratulations to all, and let's open this great facility and hopefully get through with these scissors. And congratulations. Folks, I think we have just about everybody that we're going to have, which is able to come in and join us. And this is, of course, honestly, even more special than the ribbon cutting itself, because you can never experience these kinds of successes unless you start something, and unless you lay the groundwork for truly an organization that really can become as touching to so many as Point Transit really has become. You can't get anywhere unless you have a strong foundation, and really the folks that built Point Transit into what it is and laid the foundation for us really were Roland and Mary Thurmeyer. Their continued efforts, their continued tenacity, their continued perseverance through so many years of laying the groundwork for Point Transit is really why we get a chance to be in this great building that we're all excited about today. Bob Weir gave me a call and said, you know, Mayor, I have an idea. And Bob has served on the Transit Commission for
8 years.
quite a long time. And Bob had a reflection as he approached us and said, you know, there's that great conference room, which honestly, this is going to be used for a lot of other purposes than just Point Transit and City Bus. We as a city will be using this for a variety of different uses as well. But Bob said, you know, Mayor, a really good idea would be to look at naming this particular room after the Thurmeyers for their commitment and really the ones who are most responsible for it to even have kept going through some very turbulent times back in the 60s and 70s. So with that, we have Barbara, who is Mary and Roland's daughter. We're so thrilled to be able, and of course her wonderful husband, who is here with us as well.
Boyfriend, not husband.
Oh, boyfriend, pardon me. Well, you can certainly accelerate that.
Maybe
You have a great
be used
catch.
for other things.
You have a great catch, by all means. So Barbara is here, and we are so happy that you can join us because really your mom and dad have left their fingerprints and their impact on Point Transit in a way that cannot ever really be outdone by anyone. We have a great team and we've got a great commission, but they can't do their great work unless they start with something great. And Roland and Mary certainly have been able to do that. So if you could please join me up here. I'm going to recite the words that are on the plaque. We'll show that to you and we'll present that to you, and I know you have a few words that you'd like to share with us as well. The Thurmeyer Conference and Training Room is dedicated to the memory of Roland and Mary Thurmeyer. Roland and Mary Thurmeyer worked tirelessly to provide public transportation to the Stevens Point community in the early 1970s and were instrumental in advocating for a city-operated public transit system. Their efforts paved the way in the evolution of public transit in the city of Stevens Point as it exists today. And city-owned and run is very important because prior to that it was not, and has gone through a lot of different amalgamations. So we are so thrilled that you're able to join us for this dedication, and we hereby dedicate the naming of this room as appropriately affirmed by the Common Council, the Roland and Mary Thurmeyer Conference and Training Room. So thank you so much.
Well, first of all, if you knew my mom, you knew that she cried at the drop of a hat. And I don't really cry at the drop of a hat because I have all brothers and all sons, but this is overwhelming to me. So first of all, thank you. And thank you for thinking of Mom and Dad. Because really, I was 12 when Mr. Piotrowski stopped the bus system. And I remember my dad coming home and saying, Mary, Mr. Piotrowski is closing the bus system. And my mom's like, yeah, dinner served. And he said, no, there are people who don't own cars, Mary, and it's going to be December and Christmas, and what are people going to do? And Mom's like, dinner served, you know? And one of the things that I've learned to realize about my mom and dad is that they made a great team. And one of the things that made them a great team was that my dad was a visionary and my mom was the implementer. And my dad had a vision that public transportation was important to people who couldn't afford cars, and that for people who believed in the environment and believed that that's good public policy, which we grew up being told, you need to think about good public policy. And my mom was the one who made it happen. My dad started running the bus service in 1972, and then he told my mom he'd gotten a grant to go to Case Western University to do research for the summer, and she was taking over the bus system. And that was where it went from the visionary to the implementer. And a lot of you know the story from there. But I want to share just a couple of very brief memories with you about what it meant to be a child of Roland and Mary during the bus years. First of all, I remember vividly the day PABCO was started. And it was started by my dad getting all his radical hippie professor friends and students on the government at the university to come to our living room. And he pulled out his cowboy hat. And believe it or not, my dad did have a cowboy hat, which I never to this day can fix with my dad, but he did. And he passed it around the edge of the room. And for every $5 someone put in, they got a share in Point Area Bus Co-op stock. And with that money, they actually had enough money to buy the first old school bus, which the four children were responsible for painting baby blue and white. And that was the beginning of Point Area Bus Co-op. And I remember my dad calling Mr. Piotrowski and asking him to help him understand where the people who didn't have cars lived. And they built the bus route for PABCO around where people who didn't have cars lived. And that's what this has come to. And so the first thing I want to say is, you come a long way, baby. The second quick story I want to share with you is that there were really tough years, like you said, really tough years where Mom and Dad would battle with the city council for funding and whether they was going to maintain it or not and take it over or not, and they fought so hard to keep the bus system going. And in the midst of it, they had really lousy equipment. So my mom just had a standing deal with Dr. Teagarden at the high school that when the bus went down, my brother Kurt or I would just get a free pass out of school and we'd go drive the yellow station wagon around the routes while Mom got the bus going again. And then we'd go back to school. Now, I know you don't do that today, but believe me, you did it then. And I know there was the era of Richard Nixon in the administration. And so, you know, law was kind of a funky thing. Well, it was with the school system, with the bus system too, because I could, when I drove the station wagon, I could ask for contributions in the canister that they would put in the station wagon from the bus that broke down. I could ask for contributions to PABCO, but I couldn't tell them it was a fare because I didn't have the right license to drive the bus. So somehow, probably some law was broken, but nobody cared. And I think the statute of limitation is over, so I think we're safe. Now I can tell you the bad deals. And then I would just share one more thing about Mom and Dad. When Dad passed away and we went, the family went early to the funeral home. I guess I'm backing up. I think I knew that Mom and Dad were integral to the bus system, and I think I knew it was part of the culture of Stevens Point. But at Dad's funeral, I learned how much it was a part of Stevens Point, because when we got to the funeral home and Mr. Boston had set up all the flowers, except for one that was sitting at the head of Dad's casket all by itself. And it was a little tiny flowered plant, and on it said, "Thank you, Mr. Thurmeyer, the bus riders." And that sat all alone at the head of my dad's casket when he died. And it just, I think it says a lot about the fact that Dad especially, but Dad and Mom both, really connected with what it means to have mass transportation. And so when I look at this, I think, I wish my brothers were here. They have to come and see this. And I am so proud of Stevens Point. I cannot tell you how proud I am of you for doing this, because this is the right public policy for the country and for Stevens Point and Portage County. So thank you for doing this. I'm so moved. On behalf of my parents, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation. Susan, is there anything else that you would like to touch on? Congratulations to you as well.
And thank you
Absolutely.
everyone for taking the time out of your day to come and celebrate with us today. It means a great deal to all of us.
Excellent, you bet. Thank you all.